Hey guys, this is going to be my tutorial on the different shaders that I had done my sci-fi scene for my senior year. Now, over this sort of course of, I'm thinking maybe 2 or 3 videos, we'll have to see how long I make them and how in depth I can get them to be. But I'm going to go over the different things from how to animate the shaders, how to uh, sort of get these cool different effects from each of the different screens that you can see here on mine. But what I'm going to do to begin with is kind of focus on this one guy right over here. And so to get started, basically this mesh, here, let me open it up here. This mesh is nothing more than uh, two planes for the glass, and then sort of um, uh, the background, for whatever you have on your screen and whatever that's going to be. Uh, the reason I did it like this is that way I could have variations between different screens overlaying on each other. It was kind of an experiment that I was going for to kind of see what I could end up with. But it's really nothing more than just a couple planes and so forth. Okay, so back on this, let me just slide this over here. Basically, what I have here is you have the power line intensity, which I will go over later on. We have the hologram power. That's basically how you turn it on and off, and I can show you that here, kind of just like that. And all of this stuff, the reason I turned them into parameters is so that you can animate them in the matinee. Here, I guess I can show you what this is. So basically, the power line scale is um, this color right here. So whatever color your sort of theme is that you're going for, usually you just want to make it a little bit more brighter white version of whatever theme you're doing. So just to I'll show you. Gonna go down here, and changing this in real time is really handy to be able to do that. Kind of makes it really helpful, especially as artists, to be able to do those in real time. The power line scale. Now this is a number that I looked at a lot to see which would look good. Let me show you what happens if I make this larger. I think if I make it 1. Yeah, so basically you can see it's just where it breaks from when it turns on and where it turns off. So when I turn it off, you can see it's basically the whole screen changes there. So a good number that I like to do, again, if it's something that you are looking to do, 0.005 is a good number for that. Overall brightness, this is something I added extra because you can see it gets pretty dark in my scene. There's a lot of lights around there. So adding the overall brightness as a parameter kind of helped me ramp that up and see what I want to do. So now let's get looking into, I guess, what makes up this texture. So it looks kind of complicated right now. It's actually really not that bad. Uh, the one thing I'm gonna look into, and I'm gonna make sure you guys can pause this in the video, something you can look into and see. So hopefully this is looking good here. Uh, this is actually how you turn it on and how you turn it off. Uh, Basically, it's using if statements to say that if it's this value, it'll be in this location, and if it's in this value, it'll be in this other one. Uh, all it is, it's just a right click and you look for if, and it's down here. You just plug in a 1 to the a is greater than equal to b. 0 goes into the a is less than b and the a is equal to b. Put this add here, plugged into the a. Now this is basically they're just constants, so it's just a constant like this turned into a parameter. And when you do that within the Unreal editor, what it'll do is it will create automatically these, oh, that's the wrong one, these parameter groups right here. And it'll kind of let you, they'll automatically pop up once you make it. Keeping that for later. Name it whatever you want. I'd recommend something maybe similar to what I'm doing, or something that you would remember, because you're going to need to remember those names later on. So we have the hologram power line scale. This one default is I put to 0.01. That power line scale is the thing I showed you before with the 0.005. Hologram power, usually I set that at 0. Maybe even a little bit more into the negatives. I'll get to that as to why again later on. More so has to do with the animation. Now to plug in the rest of this is you want to take a sort of a gradient. You can either make this in Photoshop. You might already have one, and depending on the way you want your scene to look, whether it's going to turn on, turn off vertically, horizontally, or even in more of a circular fashion, which I have for the table here. Let me find that here real quick so I can show you. Yeah, so you can see. All that is just a gradient. Again, if you wanted to, you could have it turn on where it actually starts in the middle here and goes outward. You can do a whole bunch of different cool things with this setup. Get back to that, to here. Okay, so basically just take the gradient, whatever one you want, uh, whatever direction that you feel like doing it. Again, you can play around with it, whatever you want to do. The 1 minus, I had put this in here because I was using this gradient elsewhere in the scene, and I wanted to turn on the opposite way, so having the white up top, black down here. So that's why I plugged the 1 minus in there. So I mean, you can either do this exactly like I have it, or you can just reverse these, having the white from the top to the black on the bottom. So then you plug these into the B's here and here. This is basically the same thing as that. Hologram power, same thing. So then this is basically, the if and the if statements. This is, when it's on, and then when it's off, what is it doing? So that's when, this is the negative. So you add these into a multiply, and you multiply the power line color. That's what I had showed you before with this thing, color. That's where that goes in. So these are all parameters. Again, to get those parameters, you right click on either a constant, which is also you either hold down 1 and then left click. That's how you get those constants. 1 is just the constant 1. Constant 2 is 2, and constant 3. 3 this is the one that's usually used for color, which is actually what this is. And then what you do is you take the multiply from here to an add, and you take the multiply from this if statement into here. Now, this can actually just plug in directly into, so this actually goes all into the emissive. When you're doing these sort of videos, video screens, or whatever, sort of face you're using this for, a phone, a video camera, kind of whatever. It always goes into the emissive. This is that overall brightness that I had used before, just so I can kind of bump it up in my scene as the parameter. I can edit it on the go. That's what this little section is. So you can either disregard that or add it to your scene, whatever you feel like doing. But anyway, so this kind of could just plug into the emissive or just into that. And then the rest of your entire material plugs in through this. So this is pretty much the hierarchy of the material editor, and if you're not that familiar with it, it's basically the the closer you are to this right here, that is kind of the order in which that this will be read. So if you put any other thing hooked up after this, it won't turn on and it'll just stay there. So say you wanted to have like a sticker or something on the side of the screen, you could just keep it as part of the same material. You could have it on the outside, here somewhere. Um, but everything on this side that plugs in through here will turn on and off with this. And the cool thing about this is you could, just highlight this whole thing, copy it, and paste it into a new material. And it's pretty much all the same hookup if you want the same screens, or all you have to do is just change this out. Now, to sort of get into a little bit of um, this particular screen I have here. This is all stuff that I had done. Again, you can make it yourself, find different references, ideas off the internet, other games, things like that. All this is just texture I made in Photoshop. Let me find it here. You can look at it. Now, the technique I'm using for, I believe, 98% of these screens is just using the different channels, the different color channels for each thing. The RGB values are the different things. So I don't think I actually have, yeah, so I don't have an alpha for this one. A couple times you can really use the alpha channel as well for either the different masks to mask out different pieces, for an extra, set of things you want to add to the sort of the interface there, the UI. But basically, so just the blue channel is just this little piece here, the green, these little guys, these little dots, and the red. And one thing that I recommend is when you make sort of some of these sort of textures, think about what you want it to do and sort of how you want it to end up moving, because that's kind of the real tricky part, to see which parts you want to line up, which parts, how do you want them to interact with each other, things like that. So what I decided to do here is I was like, okay, I remember with this one, I wanted this little middle dial to start spinning around and sort of uncover those other green dots, kind of like a radar blip. Um, it was an interesting task to figure out, but I think I did a pretty okay job. I know you can kind of see a shadow of an image of it, and that's just, sometimes that's normal. It's just like the after image. And sometimes what I found is with all these different screens going, sometimes you might get this as well. They might become fuzzy. And I looked it up, and it had something to do with just the way it was reading the image. So what you can either do is just open up the image, again, the material, and it should just correct it. It's not right now. Let's see here. Yeah, there you go. So I corrected that one, this one. Yeah. Again, I don't know why. If you want to look it up, you can try to figure that out. Anyway, you can go back to this material here. Okay, so we have the hookup for this. Now let's talk about, I guess, the scan line, something that I had here, this sort of rotating guy. It's pretty much just this guy right here. Now, what I decided to do for this is, in order to have it uncover these in this sort of way, I had to make an alpha for it, and that is this texture you see right here, which again I'll open up for you. That's all it is. It is basically, it's just showing up, nice crisp line here, then fading off and then disappearing. That's all it is. And that's how I get this effect for it to uh, look like it's just appearing and then disappearing. And all I did was just add the text coordinate, which is just, I think you just type in coordinate. Yeah, chord, get text coordinate. Rotator, mine I just set to 0.5, 0.5. That's the center. And the speed, 0.3. I can make it go much faster, but I want it too much slower. And all you do is you just plug that in to multiply, whatever color you want it, into a lerp. Then I took the green dots, because those are the things that I want to show up when this passes over it. So with a time and a sign, with a 6 in the period, and a bump offset. Now, one thing I recommend is when you are going about making your different sort of screens, keep things consistent. You want things, you know, bump offset a certain way. Sometimes it might look weird if you have a whole, like one screen with a whole bunch of different things uh, pushed in, pushed out really far away. So if you kind of watch this screen, you can see they're actually moving forward and backward, kind of fade back into the scene. So that's kind of like the little effect that I wanted to have there. So that's what this bump offset is doing, is it's moving those. Desaturated it just because I just didn't want it to have any coloration. And that is just plugged right into the alpha for this. So basically anything that this passes through, these will show up. And that gets plugged into an add. This main switch, this was something that I had seen in another tutorial. And it's basically just how you plug in each of the different pieces. They're just all adds. This just helps me keep organized. So that's what this scan line is for. Now, to have the rest of the gauge around here, let's see here. Basically using the same sort of nodes over and over and over, and just mixing them in different ways. So I have the bump offset. This one I decided to have it just have a sort of oh no, sorry, I was thinking something else. You have you have to put a value into the height. Usually it's either a height map or just a static constant works as well. So that's plugged into. So if you look here, this extra part behind here is sort of just like a shadow image. It's moving in and out, kind of like that. Nice and slow, whatever. You know, again, I had no idea what I was doing with this. I was like, that's kind of cool. So plug that in. Again, got the different color, using that for this thing, sort of my theme, sort of red theme. All plugged in, multiplies, adds into there as well. Again, this right here is actually how that is moving. We have a darker color for the background. That. Trying to see what here. Oh, okay. So this bump offset is just actually just on this pink one, and it's actually not moving. Sorry about that. This one is the one that's making this move. And again, they're all just plugged in with the addition right here. So one thing that I had to make sure, if there was any other pieces, you know, kind of in my Photoshop file, to make sure it was perfectly circular and round and that it would rotate about sort of the exact center that I wanted to, I plugged it into a lerp with this mask to make sure that everything was rotating here. I think my intention was on this texture sheet for these, I was going to have other things on the outside that I was going to use for texture atlasing. That's why I created this mask, but I ended up not doing that. But I kept it there just for good practice. Now, one thing you can notice is when you look at these screens, when you go about the side, you have that sort of refraction or the Fresnel. That's what this is. So this is basically just taking the Fresnel, setting it to whatever you want, the color that I want, multiplied into an ad. Then I decided, it'd be kind of cool to have sort of that monitor vibe where you had the screen when it was turned on, you had this sort of like little glow on the edge to, I don't know, show that it's that. I remember some screens you can see that, probably much older screens, but I decided I wanted to have that here. So all that is just this sort of mask with the coloring into a lerp, having all that plugged in through that, and basically that's the end of the line. So that plugs into here, which again finishes the material. Uh, what I ended up doing was basically taking this portion with the Fresnel and the edge glow, I guess I called it, and then the power line, and I just copy pasted that into all these other materials, and that way it was consistent throughout. Now, oh, no. This one I'll look at briefly. Again, this was again a little bit more me kind of experimenting and going crazy with the amount of things that you can end up doing with it. Um, so again, if you look, you have yeah, the power, turning it on. It's the same. These guys are the same. All right here. This whole section is the same. This is where I was having a little bit more fun. So basically, what I had added to this was, or the difference between that one and this one, is they're all just rotating shapes. That's all it is. Really, really, really simple. We have the red one, which is this center one, rotated and it's offset by 1.5. This one's offset by 1. That is the blue one. Same colors to an ad. Here we go. The next one is, I basically duplicated it. The red and blue, different color, with here and here. And in the height, what I decided to do is I wanted that to move back and forth. Gotta see here. It's there. That's all it is. Let's see, this sign is 6. This one's 6 again, so it's the same. 0.5, 0.5. Scan line. So originally, when I was looking up these sort of things to do, the scan line is actually this effect right here, and I just kept the sort of organizational part of it in some of the other materials. That's why it might not make exact sense. Um, so basically, what I decided to do was take the whole thing plugged in, and just this big line right here. Uh, have that sort of pan across. So all this is just panning across here as this whole side here is rotating. So that's what gives it this effect. So this is just rotating, and then this is just panning across to get that. That's all that is. Plugged into an ad. Now, this little part, so again, this is something I was intending to do, but I ran out of time during this project, and it was to sort of have a different interface along the outsides of this. That's why I had ended up having this mask. So but all it is taking this texture, whatever that is that you want to use, text coordinate into a panner. That goes through just all it is just black and white lines. And my panner, I believe, yeah, it's just 2 and 2, so it's just um, moving up, believe, yeah, just vertically. And have the color into a lerp. The lerp is this, and the color into a multiply. This was just to give it just an extra uh, crispness. That's something I wanted to do. And that's plugged into a lerp here with, again, that the opposite of the mask, the other one. Again, just to make sure everything is nice and crisp into there. You don't even really necessarily need this. This could just be plugged into an ad itself. But again, that's just something I was testing and making sure that it was all going to work. And what I'm going to do is actually wrap up this video right now, and I'm going to make another video for basically how to do the animation for these screens and also the city, this part, the table here, and also these screens. These are a little bit more complicated in a sense of not like difficulty in nodes, but there's just a lot of them because I wanted to have a lot of things going on when I looked at these. So if you look here, like even these are moving. These I was gonna make move. I think this one's the more done. I have these sort of lines blipping across in various ways. That's not loading. Yep. There you go. That one was just a fun one. Just, again, same UI. I was gonna replace it, but ended up not. And just these blinking different things going on. I don't know. I was really trying to get into it to see what I could do, push the limits. This is like literally the first time I had ever done any of these types of shaders, so I thought it was pretty fun. It was definitely a good learning experience. Um, yeah, I will talk about that in the next video. So, alrighty.